Have you ever felt like personal branding is just for the loudest voice in the room? Many introverts worry that getting noticed means forcing themselves to be outgoing or constantly hustling, especially in today's always on world. The main struggle is figuring out how to stand out and build a meaningful reputation when you recharge better in quiet than at the mic. It's tough to balance self-promotion with staying authentic, avoid burnout from the hustle culture, and find confidence if you don't feel naturally extroverted. My friend Goldie, known as the Oprah of LinkedIn and a celebrated author and creative agency founder, is here on today's episode to share another way. In this episode, we'll talk about Goldie's approach to personal branding for introverts, the ideal daydreaming method, practical mindset shifts, and her 5 C's framework. In good old Goldie fashion, expect honest discussion on showing up as yourself while building a sustainable brand. And you're going to walk away with ideas you can actually try, even if you are not the loudest in the room. And with that, I am so excited to introduce to you today Goldie Chan. If you have not met her yet, you are in for a treat. Goldie is a creative keynote speaker, author, and cancer survivor. Girl, my head is off to you. I followed your journey on that one. She has nearly 500,000 followers and was named the Oprah of LinkedIn by Huffington Post, and her creative video channel of nearly 100,000 followers won LinkedIn top voice. Goldie also founded Warm Robots, an award-winning social media strategy and creative agency based in Los Angeles, with global clients, and previously was a senior contributor to Forbes, where her internationally recognized column received nearly 10 million views. You were also named Journalist of the Year in 2024, and your book, Personal Branding for Introverts, through a Basic Venture Hatchet Book Group, comes out in October. I need to look into this. It is live at this point, right? Or are we in pre-launch phase still?
We are currently, as we're recording this, I don't know when the podcast is going to go out, when it's going to be edited, so I don't want to assume. But right now, when we're talking in September, and it's not out yet. So it'll be out at the end of October, in October 28th. 2025. So I am so excited. It'll be out right before Halloween, right before the spooky season. And nothing is spookier than a book launch. I don't know.
Oh god, yeah, I hear you on that one.
Nothing is more scary than a product launch right before the holidays, right? So that's where it's at right now. I'm really excited about it. It's definitely has taken me several years to get here, and I'm sure, as you've talked to so many of our mutual friends who are book authors, it sometimes just takes a long time and a village to get to releasing something.
Girl, it's like, and that's where I'm like, okay, I've seen the book, I've seen the announcements. I am being a complete bad host, not knowing if we're in pre-launch or in launch, because I feel like it's already here. And it's just, it's Goldie. Let's be honest. When you see the pre-launch announcement and the announcement, and you see the book cover and everything, it's so you. Now, what's been interesting to me is personal branding for introverts. So if you don't know Goldie yet, to me, it's like the opposite of introvert. I've watched you share your journey with cancer. I've watched you before it. You've always been outspoken. You've always been supportive. You've always been there for people. And now it's like, Goldie, an introvert? I want to talk about this. How did you came to this branding for introverts?
Yeah, so It's so funny because I think so many people who have followed my journey for so long, and you and I have known each other for a very long time at this point. I think that a lot of people think I'm not an introvert, and that brings me to one section of my book that I talk about, which is being a loud introvert, being excited about what you're talking about. And I think so many introverts are miscategorized because they are really passionate about certain areas, usually about the area that they work in, or about their hobbies, or about so many other things. And so they can be really loud. So I think, and of course, bless Susan Cain's book, Quiet, such a good book on introverts. But I think we're in a new age where we can't always be quiet. Maybe that's the quote, right? I think that to it's definitely possible and probable to be an introvert who is not just quiet, to be an introvert that is out there, that is promoting themselves, that is also finding your voice in the middle of what is a really busy and noisy world. And I know for myself, that's kind of what I did is I started speaking up, and prior to making videos on LinkedIn, I was very much behind the scenes. I was very much like working in corporate America, doing the 9 to 5, sitting at that desk, sitting at that cubicle, and not at all doing what we're doing now, which is a really exciting thing, right? I'm here talking on your podcast. This is a podcast that you own. And I think that these creative projects, especially for introverts, people think introverts can't do this, but introverts absolutely can.
And you also talk about your IDD method, your ideal. There's my first German tongue twister of the episode already. You call it, and your book introduces this too, the ideal daydreaming method. Could you walk us through that and how that helps introverts really align their personal brand with their ideal life and just start speaking out?
Yeah, so ideal daydreaming is a term that I came up with because, like so many good terms and ideas that we all have, it came up because a few people told me about it. So I have a really good friend. I'm not going to name him because he actually has a pretty ideal life and he doesn't need me to name him. Um, and one of the things that I think is fascinating is he really thought about what is his ideal life. So he travels all over the world. He actually is originally from the US and now lives in a different country. And he met his partner while he was traveling, and they settled down in her home country. And one of the things that he wanted to do is, because he's been traveling so much, because he's been working so hard, he wanted to make sure that they have an ideal life together. And that does not mean that they're not working. That doesn't mean, of course, that they're working also all the time. So he thinks about it on a day to day basis. So he'll get up in the morning, he will make them both breakfast, they'll go and do the work. He will answer emails while she goes and works on her remote consulting business. Then they'll meet up again for lunch and he'll cook, or she'll sometimes cook. He really loves to cook for her. They'll maybe sit outside on their porch and have lunch together, which is very sweet. They'll go back and do work. And in the evening, they'll usually meet up with their neighbors and have dinner together, and or go for a long walk and explore the neighborhood and things like that, because he really wanted to live in a neighborhood that's very walkable. And I think that this is such a beautiful life, but this is also the result of ideal daydreaming. He dreamed of what an ideal work life day would be. So the perfect day, both in work, which is, making sure he's doing the emails, making sure he's doing the writing that he needs to do, making sure he's running his businesses, but also that he has a life. He's meeting up with friends. He's spending time with his beloved partner. He's doing all these things that make his life richer and fuller at the end of the day. And that's why I want to introduce ideal daydreaming, because so many of us are encouraged only to think about work
Oh God,
or
yeah.
only to think about life, right?
Which brings me to another thing you're talking about, and that I also have in my notes here. You already mentioned we often have been conditioned to, it's like work, 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 especially here in the US, right? it's such a hustle culture. It's such a, if you just put the work in, you get there and you will get it. And a lot of status happens because of work, because of what we do. Now, changing something like that is not always easy. Yes, we can set up and build this ideal day. Doesn't mean we might not be falling into old perceptions again and old habits.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
we're humans, right? It's like
We're humans.
you're not just gonna rewrite the last 20, 30, 40 years
Right.
overnight.
I
And
just gave a keynote and I asked how many people, and it was on AI, and I asked how many people in the audience are robots. And it's funny because there's a handful of people who didn't raise their hands, and I just was like, "So are you telling me you're robots?"
and in the end, we are somewhat because we are running on a programming, right? And it takes a little bit to rebuild that programming. Now, you talk about, you treat your mindset, which are our habits, our thoughts, right? Where everything begins, like an ecosystem that needs steady cultivation. So how does your mindset, what does your mindset work look like, and how does it integrate with really making your ideal day happen?
Yeah, so I would say that my general mindset is what is healthy, what is sustainable, and what is purposeful, right?
Ooh, I love the
And
purposeful in
I
there.
didn't prep those words beforehand. Those are the first three words that come up in my head when I think about this. And I like to talk a lot about sustainability too. I'll start with that middle word, uh, because I think so many people will do this, and I'm sure you've seen this too, as we've both been on LinkedIn for a long time too, is you'll have folks and they suddenly push out so much content, right? They're suddenly doing so much stuff all in one go, and it's not sustainable. It's not sustainable because they'll do it for a month and then they'll disappear for 2 years, come back
Mhm.
and do it again. And I think that so much of what is helpful for a personal brand is consistency. So even if you're putting out one post a month, but you're doing that really consistently, that's more memorable than somebody that does a ton of content over the course of the week and then you just stop for several years at a time. So that's one. And then the other one is healthy. I do agree that in the US we have a very unhealthy hustle culture mindset where everything is about work, 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 never take breaks. We idolize people for not taking breaks and not doing that. And as you know, I went through the cancer journey, and for me, it was very important that I took that break because I literally need to be in the hospital. I think sometimes multiple times a day, and usually at least 4 to 5 days out of the week, I was in the hospital. So it was not possible for me to be at work with that kind of hospital schedule. And I didn't have a client or a job that I could take that time and just be in the hospital constantly. So I think what is healthy in terms of building your personal brand or in terms of just sustaining who you are, I think those are things that are important. And then at the end of the day, and I'm sure you feel this as you're traveling around, what is purposeful? What is your purpose overall? Why are you here? Why are you doing what you do? Because if you don't feel, and I hate to talk about feelings, right? We hate to talk about feelings when we talk about business. But if you don't feel it, why are you doing it? If you're,
Mm.
and of course, all of us have, businesses for different reasons, and we do what we do at work for different reasons. But I hope to encourage you to infuse at least a little bit of purpose, real purpose into your work too.
And that's been a conversation in my circles a lot too. For me, the word is passion, right? With my passion, there comes the purpose. And so often I ran into coaches and mentors that are like, don't build a business on your passion. And I'm like, I'm not talking about getting an ADHD weekend run of making bracelets. When I say passion, it's something that is connected to my personality, something that fires me up, something that will give me energy on the most down days. And I'm like, I'm literally getting goosebumps right now because it's like I couldn't do, I literally physically will start getting sick and fight it if I don't have passion in it. And I see my passion similar to your purpose, where it's like you see somebody light up, you know, they can talk about it for hours, they embrace it, they love it. And it so much helps you in your brand and in your business, and just connect with people when you have that energy with it.
Yeah, I think if to bring it back to the being humans part, right? I think we as humans respond really well when we see another human who is genuinely on this earth being themselves in whatever capacity that is. And especially at work, because so many of us, we do choose the thing, right? We choose the work, and we choose the work that maybe is easiest, or maybe those that opportunity has just presented itself and we're doing it, we're doing that work. And for some of us, work really is a survival job, which I absolutely understand. I think, though, I'm hoping for so many people that you're encouraged, though, to think about beyond the survival job and think about the purpose and, of course, the passion within a greater career, right? So, how can you take this survival job or survival role or survival client, and how can you level up into a career where you are more connected and you do feel that sense of purpose or passion tied between yourself and what you do for a living?
And that brings me perfectly to your 5 C's, because I'm like you. It's like the easiest I can make my work to have the biggest impact. I love me some frameworks. I love me a brand that is aligned. And you talk about the 5 C's of personal branding, which is community, confidence, competence, consistency, and clarity, if I have those right. Now, how can those help service providers, small business owners, content creators, anybody out there really wanting to build that personal brand, building that impact? How can those pillars help them build a sustainable brand?
Yeah, I think for small business owners, especially, it is really helpful to, first of all, start with one of these. And I will say which of the C's to start with. I actually had to pull up my notes to remember. I always get like it a little bit wrong. So I want to make sure I got them all right. So I always like to start with clarity for small business owners, because I think because you're the face of the brand, you're making so many of those game time decisions. In the green room, when we were meeting before this podcast, you and I talked about how you have a great chat that you have with your assistant where you drop in these ideas, and then she helps clarify what those ideas are by typing them up, etc. Clarity is part of that. Clarity is when we understand the why we're doing something. Because I think at the end of the day, then that makes it so much easier to be creating or making or doing or reaching out to clients, because you'll know why you're reaching out to those clients. You'll know who those clients are. And then the next one I want to talk about, of course, is something that is not a sexy word, but we should talk about more, which is competency. And that is the fact that you are already an expert in what you know. You already have a skill set. I think so many people downplay what they know and what they're able to share with others, because they say, well, I really want to become this person, but all my jobs have been in retail or have been in this or that or the other thing. I've only had clients like this. How will I get a client like that if I've never done that? But I think, like so many things, there's elements of what you've done already in the past that will help you get those clients in the future. Another, of course, C word we love is clients. But to bring it then to a third word of those five, confidence. Confidence is so important. And I think we've all been in the room before when we have been around somebody who is very, I like to use two C words in a row, calm and confident. Someone who is calm and confident, and they are the eye of the storm, right? Everything is happening around them, but they are so calm, they're so confident. And that's so attractive to other human beings, because a lot of times when you are around somebody who's in unconfident, who's not very confident, we have that little insecurity that is kind of unpleasant to be around. Or on the opposite side, which I believe personally is tied actually directly to insecurity. You have ego. You have somebody who's shouting at the rooftops that, believe me, I can do this. But confidence is so ego is when you're shouting what you can do in the room, and confidence is when you are what you can do in the room. It's just that sureness that you are absolutely that person. And I think confidence is not something that I can give you the magic bullet and say, here's a phrase, you're going to be confident tomorrow, right? I'll leave that to the confidence experts who have written many, many, many books and courses and things on that. But I do think that confidence starts with knowing that you have that competency. You are an expert in your particular field. You do know a lot. You have had very specific life experiences and work experiences that have led you to this moment. And that will be the basis from which you can jump off and learn some more. And I will very quickly go through there too. And one is consistency, the other is community. So consistency is that example I talked about before where you have those people that dump a whole bunch of content in one go and then they're like, I'm done. And that doesn't actually work that way for developing a personal brand. You need to be consistent over time. You need to be putting in the work every month, every week, etc. It's so helpful to be really consistent with your follow through, and that will at the end of the day build our Lassie community. So just like all the amazing people who are listening in on this podcast right now who are part of your community, and probably a little bit part of my community, I think that there are so many people out there who focus so much on the shouting, on the telling people that you're an expert, and they neglect the very simple thing that if you are shouting into an empty room, you're still shouting into an empty room.
Oh, that one hit. Yeah. And I love how you also brought together the competence and calm, because I think they really go hand in hand. We have a saying in Germany, and I can't actually think about it right now in the original language, but pretty much what it says is the one that shouts the loudest knows the least. And I feel like sometimes that's kind of what happens, where I run into somebody and it's like, look at me, I'm the expert, I know all the things, and I'm like, I'm just not feeling the confidence because it's not calmly delivered. It's pushy, it's in your face, and it's loud.
I'll give another D word that I personally don't like, and when I experience this word, I steer clear of people and in my personal life too and in my work life, and that is desperation,
Ooh. Now, the interesting
right?
thing to me with desperation is it can have
Yes.
two different triggers where it's coming from, yet it has the same
Yes.
impact.
Yes.
And it doesn't matter where it's coming from, where it's like, oh my God, I need to
What
pay my
which are the
bills, right?
2 what are the 2 triggers that you believe that desperation comes from?
One is often to me, a financial desperation. So the first thing that popped in my head is this
Yes.
showing up to a lead call. Somebody already reached out to you. They already want to work with you, and it's a constant push. It's a here, you can buy this. It's not a pull marketing, it's a push marketing. It just feels
Right,
desperate,
right,
right? And then you got the follow
right.
up and the follow up and the follow up, and you don't even let them breathe. You are just like a used car sales guy, never leaving that lead to just even breathe.
Right, right,
And
let them breathe, yes,
it feels desperate. It feels desperate, and I know where it's coming from. I think we've all been at some point in a situation where finance, and the other one to me is an insecurity. It's a needing this when I have seen people show up in desperation, needing that external validation because they're not sure in themselves.
I think you're definitely talking about 2 absolutely accurate things, and I think that they're both insecurities. One is financial insecurity, and then the other one is emotional insecurity, where they don't have that, and that's where confidence comes from, right? Confidence comes from internal validation, and insecurity comes from the need for external validation. And I want to say that all of us have different varying levels of needing to be externally validated, which is very healthy, very human. But when you start requiring 100% of your validation to come from external sources, that's when you start to get into trouble. That's when you start giving off those, as kids would say, desperate vibes, right?
And don't get me wrong, I have people in my life where there's literally moments of, okay, putting it out on the table, I need some external validation right now. Just give me some good feedback, please, because I'm in a situation right now and in a moment where emotions are just insane. I need somebody externally to pick me up, and that's totally fine. It's just when it comes to the point and coming back around to calm and confident is I have found myself in lead calls, right? Where I'm like, oh my God, I'm having a day, whatever it is, I'm not feeling as confident as I want to be. And I simply give it a breather. I simply go into calm. Here is the thing, and I'm just quiet and let them be, which somehow brings me back into actually being confident again. So that's why I was so excited about you bringing together confident and calm, because I think if we step back into calm when we don't feel confident, the confidence comes back.
I do agree that calm is so underrated. And I think, one of the ways to, and I talk in my book also about introvert burnout, which burnout happens to everyone. I think for introverts in particular, I know that this happens for me when I go to conferences, is my batteries get drained so fast. Like I get really, really exhausted. Even if I'm really excited to be there, I'm sure you've been in a situation where you're there to give a keynote. You're a VIP. It's so cool that you're there. You are very thankful for that opportunity. You want to be called back. You're thankful to meet all those people, but it is okay also if that is also still an overwhelming situation. So I always think, how can I bring back that calm? How can I recharge my introvert batteries? And, just to go into tactics a little bit, I guess, one of the things that I also like to do is when I'm, say, at a conference, is I will physically leave the venue. I'll just go outside for 10 minutes. I will breathe air outside. I will leave for a second just to get my bearings a little bit. Or if there's the hotel that I'm staying nearby, I will go back to the hotel, spend an hour in the hotel and just reset myself a little bit, just get myself back into a calm mindset where I'm thinking more clearly, and then I can become a better person to go back to that specific event or conference, and I'm just more clear minded, and I'm not feeling quite so anxious or overwhelmed or all of those other negative things that we feel sometimes in busy, people filled places. But it is not easy, but it is very doable to reset.
Oh, it's been quite the exercise for me, because in combination with just getting overwhelmed with big conferences, at some point I hit my energy level, similar to you, right?
Right.
In combination with suddenly having FOMO, where it's like I don't want to go but I don't want to miss it, and I don't want to go but I don't want to miss it.
Yeah.
And it took me a little bit, and it took me a couple of exercises to just get to the point of being okay not being at every single fringe event and having to do it all. And I was simply better for it, and believe me, I am the worst at conference hangover. I love being there, I love the energy, I love soaking it
Yeah.
up, and I need a week vacation afterwards.
Yeah, I call that for introverts, I call it the introvert hangover, which makes sense, right? But instead of being alcohol related, it is energy related, that you are exhausted, that you feel drained, that you don't want to talk to people, that you're just of course not at your best. Definitely I feel that too when I go to conferences that are super super busy a lot. In fact, I just came back from one in Vegas that was for a couple of days, and it was like just a lot. And I was very thankful to be there, but I for sure needed that like day or two just to reset my batteries, not talk to people, not be working, just kind of sitting quietly and recharging my batteries and really just zoning out and not being quite on all the time. And I know for you, you travel quite a bit too. And so travel too, I think can take such a toll on us because it's the going to the airport, it's getting on the airplane. And I personally love flying. But I know that even a day after travel, just like the being at the airport, getting in those lines, getting out of the lines, like, and then, getting to wherever you're going to, whether that's taking a car, a bus, a train, or whatever form of transportation you are on, getting just there's so much movement. And then it's so much, okay, I have to keep on top of this. Okay, I have to make sure I do this. I have to, do I have the tickets for this? Do I have the check in for that? And I think that travel can itself also become something that can be a little overwhelming. So to, give yourself some grace as you are, if you are traveling quite a bit too.
And I think it's that duality and being okay with it being an end. I love traveling. I love flying. I don't even know how many sunset, cloud, lift off, take off, landing videos and images in my phone. We have more than enough B-roll of traveling. However, I still and have travel anxiety. I will be at the airport an hour before I even have to be there. It's like, and it's an end. And they both can coexist and they both can be there, and just being okay with both of them being there. Now, I wanted to make sure to also mention and ask, coming back around to branding for introverts, you also do offer a free workbook for everybody that bought the book, meaning you have some exercises, you have some helps for them. How, from your clients, from the people you have worked with, what have you seen they are able to accomplish, they are able to make happen when they implement your exercises?
Yeah. One thing that I actually don't talk about a lot publicly, but I should probably talk about more publicly is I also work with C-level executives on their personal brands, or more accurately, I work with their teams on their personal brands. But I think one of the pieces of feedback that I often get from them is how much what I do helps humanize their brand. So, like, I know that we are in the age of AI, of course, and there's so much that it can help with and help streamline. But I think that audiences, that people still like that human touch to their brand. And I think that that is what you will get out of following my systems or reading my book, is that you'll get a very human first approach to building your personal brand, and you'll get a lot of course, technical tips and tricks as well too, but a lot of it is finding out what is really wonderful about you and building in part of that wonderfulness into your personal brand so that you can stand out. Because there are so many people out there who just, let's just use the term product manager, who are product managers, right? But if you have a very specific skill set around product managing, say you work specifically in automotive and you are just like the best person to work in product management in automotive, you have that hyper specific skill set. Bringing in your personal story and bringing in your personal brand, that's where you will stand out from the crowd. And that's how you will be and remain memorable. So I would say that that's the number one thing that people get from following what I say, because of course, a lot of what I say is common sense. A lot of what I say you can find on YouTube, you can find in courses, you can find in other books probably. But I like to think that the way I've put it together makes sense. Someone sent me a beautiful early review of my book, completely unsolicited. And she said that she is an introvert with depression, social anxiety. She never reads self help books, but she saw my book and she got an early copy of it. And she said, "This is the best self help book I've ever read," which, first of all, thank you, person. I'm sending her a gift too. But she said it's the best self help book she's ever read because she said it felt like a friend talking to me about personal branding. She's like, I didn't feel like you were lecturing me, that I was missing certain things or that I did things wrong. She's like, I felt this real, genuine human enthusiasm that you had for helping me understand here's just some ways you could try. You know, and she said, You weren't forcing me to do anything. You just were giving me some helpful options. And every chapter just felt like we were another minute or a couple minutes, hour into a conversation. And I was like, that is literally the most beautiful compliment I've at least gotten on this book so far. That my book is a conversation that I'd love to involve you in. And that's 100% what I feel. And also, yes, of course, 100% of it is if you purchase one of the books, you will absolutely get a workbook. But I will say this, which I'm going to drop into the podcast right now, that even if you don't purchase the book, which please purchase the book, I am so happy to give you a copy of the workbook if you mention that you heard me on this podcast. And you have to drop my friend's name or else I will not send it to you. But if you send me that note on LinkedIn and then also drop my amazing friend's name that is running this podcast and also your email, I will send you a copy of the workbook because I am not a person about gatekeeping and I really want to help everyone build a wonderful personal brand.
And I've seen that you had shared that early review and I've seen it, and it's Goldie in a box, literally. It's like hearing that you were able to take your personality and put it in a book because this is how you make people feel. It's the first time we met in person. It's this, holy crap. It's Goldie. Holy crap. I'm like, I've been seeing her online, and it was such an experience where it's like, you are a friend. If you run into Goldie at any kind of conference or whatever, this is exactly what you get from the first time. These conversations, this friendship, this connection has been like this since the first time we ever met in person. And there is no ego to you. I don't know. It's just Goldie. I don't even know how to put it into words because you are always supportive. You are always loving. You are always friendly. You are always with open arms. Even in your worst times, you still were like this. And I'm like, fuck. If only more people were like that. And if you ever have met her in person, if you ever will meet her in person, you know exactly what I'm talking about. I literally got a call from a friend of mine right before you came on to record with me. And she's like, oh my God, I love Goldie. I'm like, yeah. That's literally the conversation that happens behind the scenes because you are who you are. What you see, what you hear is who you get to meet in person too. And with that, for everybody that does not know you yet, where can they find you? Where can they connect with you? Where can they get the book?
Thank you. So first of all, I know that you will drop these links, so I will still spell out the URLs because I feel like I've been trained to do this. But you can always find me at goldiechan.com. And for folks who want to buy my books, you can find it at goldiechan.com/book. You can always find me on LinkedIn, linkedin.com/in/Goldie. And I am so excited to connect with you. In fact, I definitely, if you once again drop that you heard about me on this podcast and also leave this podcast an amazing review, I hope that is the second thing. Please do that. Then I will definitely send you a copy of my workbook. I'm so happy to do that. And I will say one of the things that we just talked about, really humanizing once again your brand, bringing in that little bit of human element to your brand is what's going to make you memorable. Because I certainly am almost never the smartest person in the room, but I like to hope that in some ways I'm a more approachable person in the room. I am a better listener in the room, which is a very introvert thing. So at the end of the day, I hope that you are encouraged to bring more of yourself to your personal brand.
And as you're right, yes, all of the link will be nice, easily clickable in the description wherever you listen, watch, or whatever. However, we also know that AI is scanning everything, and transcripts are helpful to make sure they also find the links. Goldie, thank you so much for coming on. Thank you so much for being a voice and a support and just being you. Thank you.
Thank you so much.